where we put you on the map. This is Ron Costa broadcasting live in the Mappable USA studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. And folks out there, who's into real estate these days? Are you a developer? Are you an investor? You want to get more eyeballs to your deals? Today we're going to talk about one way of doing this. And before we get going, let's introduce Vicky Hutchmala from the World Token Market. Vicky, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing fine, Ron, except all the pollen in the world has settled into Vegas, and so we're all sneezing and coughing and can't breathe. But the sun is shining, and it's a beautiful day in Vegas, and we have a very exciting guest today, and we're going to talk about real estate and how to make it happen.
Yeah, a lot of people are interested in real estate, right? And crowdfunding, et cetera. I think that's a pretty good topic. So let's wait for more time, and let's bring on Steve Nson. He's the CEO and founder of Any Size Deals. Steve, how's it going over there with you today?
I'm great. Thank you, Ron, and thank you, Vicky, for having me on the show today. I'm super excited to be with you guys.
Our pleasure. Listen, it's always fun to talk to someone from New York, right? My old stomping grounds, like we discussed earlier. But we have better winters here in Vegas than you guys do over there.
You certainly do. You certainly do. Well, it hasn't been too bad this year. Like today, it's about 50 degrees, so it's not an awful day.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, that's not bad at all. And you know, Steve, even though I've been in Vegas for quite some time, I still keep my New York Mets fandom alive. So I'm a big baseball fan. I follow the team all the time. So. But listen, before we start this podcast, let's talk a little bit about yourself and your background and maybe a little bit of information on Any Size Deals.
Absolutely. So I've been in the real estate industry for most of my adult life. I went to the University of Minnesota. I got an undergraduate degree in finance and real estate. I worked for a couple of years at major banks over there, Wells Fargo, U.S. Bank, mostly in the commercial real estate group. And then I moved to New York in 2007, went to NYU, got a master's degree in real estate. And I graduated in 2008, 2009, which is probably the worst time to graduate with a degree in real estate, because that's when the whole economy was tanking.
Yeah.
But, timing is everything in life, huh? But I still ended up working with a lot of major real estate companies here in New York, mostly doing asset management, leasing, and operations, but I always had this bug to start my own thing. So eventually in 2014, I started Any Size Deals, and in 2015, I kind of went full-time, and the real focus was on connecting real estate professionals to do deals. Right, so my whole concept was, think of it like a dating site, but instead of looking for a date, you're looking for an investment partner. Right, so that was kind of what the concept was, and I launched the site. We started to get some traction, and part of the way for me to kind of promote the site, I started organizing events, and the point of the events was to have people show up, network, and then in the middle of the event, I'll come up and do my pitch about, my startup, my company, blah, 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 so people would sign up. But then I realized that I was getting a lot more traction with the in-person events versus the online platform itself. So I started focusing on putting together more events, because the whole concept was to connect people to do deals. And I realized that a lot of people would come to the events and do transactions, meet investment partners, get financing, find out about opportunities. So kind of went from there, and then I started doing events here in New York City, did a few events in London, and I had a strong interest in tech. So all my real estate events were always around real estate innovation. So I would focus on specific topics. I would do, let's say, one on artificial intelligence in real estate. I would do one on blockchain in real estate. I also did a few on opportunity zones, and eventually led me to decide to put on a big show in Vegas. And I was slated to do it last year, but obviously COVID happened, so we weren't able to put on the show in 2020 in Vegas. But we're going to do it this year, this September, so we're really excited about that. So that kind of gives a little bit of my background.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Everyone loves to come to Vegas, especially for conferences and shows. When you say that you've been doing this for a while and you couldn't do it last year because of the pandemic, Have you used any virtual type conference platforms, or what do you think about that?
So initially, when in March of last year, when everything was shutting down and everybody was trying to think of what to do with their businesses, a lot of people in the industry space went virtual, and I totally understand the logic behind it. Like, you want to have some presence, even if you can't have the in-person. For me, it was never really an option because my objective was to put on this show in Vegas where a lot of it relied on people being there to meet each other and do transaction and build off of the energy. A virtual show just couldn't do it for me. I did attend I have some friends in the industry who also put on shows. I went to their virtual events, and they were fine, but to me, it just kind of defeats the whole purpose, right? In a virtual show, you don't get the same one-on-one interaction that you get in person. It's like being on a webinar, and you can't be there for 8 hours. If you're an exhibitor, it's very hard for you to get the same feel versus someone walking into your booth, right, or interacting with you. You know, if it's virtual, they're just watching something online. It's not the same. So for me, that's why I did not do a virtual show. I decided, you know what, I'll just push it back to next year where I can have something in person, because I feed off that energy, and customers, clients, attendees, that's what they feed off of as well.
Well, yeah, because you need to have that eye contact, even though you can see someone on your screen or your whatever. The eye contact is not there. The body language is not there. The shaking of the hand, all of that energy and emotion and everything is lacking in any kind of a virtual conference and especially a trade show. How could a vendor even think about doing a virtual trade show? Because, you know, nobody's going to pay attention because you can't focus. You can't focus on anything, and the excitement is gone.
It is, and also when you're at home, whether we're to admit it or not, at home we're very distracted, right?
Absolutely.
So if you're watching on the screen, you're doing something else. It's like it's a very hard sell. And
it's boring.
I think there's a huge demand of people wanting to come back. Now, everybody should be vaccinated by May if you believe the information that's put out there. So if everybody is vaccinated and we do everything to keep people safe, I think, you know, in-person events are a big part of our economy, are a big part of how people do business. And I've spoken with a lot of vendors who actually pay for the virtual shows, and they tell me it's not close. It's not close, that they're doing it because they have to do something. But the in-person, there's no comparison with an in-person show. There's just, you can't compare the two.
No,
yeah,
and you know, Vegas is opening up now, and we're starting to get back. People are starting to come, and your show in September is going to be at the Venetian, and the Venetian is absolutely beautiful site. I mean, it's gorgeous, and there's a lot of nice places in Vegas, but the Venetian is one of the nicer ones. That's a perfect place to have. Yes.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
That's one of the reasons I chose it as well. I wanted to make sure it's in a quality venue where we can really, and it's 4 days, and the way I have it set up is each day we're focusing on a different aspect of real estate innovation. For example, the first day it's more focused on multifamily, right? So anything related to multifamily as well as construction. So whether tech related to multifamily or what are the new trends in multifamily, what are people building, what are residents looking for, et cetera. Then the second day we kind of focus more on the office aspect of our industry and the future of work. Now that we have this to work from home, remote, et cetera, we'll cover a lot of topics around that. But also if you manage office buildings or you operate office buildings, what's the right way to design space? What's the right way to manage your employees? We had this whole wave with co-working was very popular, but after this happened, a lot of co-working companies went out of business. We still have a few that are there. Is this a business that should be more run by the actual people who own and operate the office buildings, or should it be third party, right? And then on the third day, we kind of focus on blockchain and its impact on real estate as well as crypto, right? Ties into financing aspects of the real estate. What are some of the new trends or different ways to finance real estate? Blockchain comes into play with that. You also have SPACs, which is they've been very popular, which are these blank check companies, or probably 40 or so that are solely focused on the real estate technology. Why is that so popular? One of the reasons it's so popular is because COVID forced adoption in the real estate space to accelerate by like 5 to 10 years, right? So if you own and operate buildings, you might not have wanted to incorporate as much technology. Well, with COVID, you didn't have a choice. If you wanted to do showings, you had to do it remotely. You had to think of like even entries into your space, how to make things not as touchless or remote, etc. So everybody who owns and operates real estate has been forced to kind of accelerate their understanding and appreciation of what technology does to them. And so those are some of the things we'll be covering during the week.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, Steve, I can't pick a college basketball winner for the life of me, but back in December, Ike said that 2021 was going to be the year of the SPAC, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be right about that. So,
I mean, the amount of money that's gone into these blank check companies, and I'm telling you, and there's so many that are focused on the real estate space. And if you think about it, I totally understand why, because the amount of innovation that's happening, and if you think about it, if you have a software tool that, let's say, helps run a building more efficiently, right? If it helps run a building more efficiently in New York, then it'll do the same in Boston or Paris or Johannesburg or Beijing, right? So it's very scalable. So any innovation in real estate, if it's innovation on the property management side, it's scalable, right? So that means that people are looking for all these companies because they're like, well, if I pick a company that's successful, it's easy for me to use the same product or service throughout the world, and it's a lot of money. So that's the other thing.
Yeah, and I'm impressed with your trade shows, the way that you set them up already. You know, you're New York, London, now Las Vegas. You're hitting some really great venues where a lot of people, there's a lot of decision-making going on there. A lot of influencers go to these events. So it's really awesome. You've come a long way. But I wanted to ask you a question about maybe like the first couple of times you started one of these, I don't know, conferences when you wanted to match investors. Where did you do your first one? Did you do it in a hotel room? Did you do it? I mean, I'm sure you didn't get too many people there, right?
Excuse me. Well,
that's a loaded question, Ron.
It's a journey, because as an entrepreneur, right? At least from my philosophy, my standpoint is you have to start where you are with what you have. So my first event I ever did, first one, it was at a restaurant in Harlem called Red Rooster. It's by a famous chef named Marcus Samuelson, right? Yeah, it's a real nice restaurant.
I know, yeah.
So, yeah, you're familiar. Okay, so it wasn't even a trade show. It was just a networking event. It was a meetup. It wasn't anything fancy. Like I said, I had a website. I was trying to get people on board. I went to a couple of meetups, and I told the people at their meetup, hey, can I come up here and pitch my company? And they said no. I was like, well, how hard can it be? Maybe I should start my own. So first thing I did was the Harlem Real Estate Meetup at Red Rooster. A couple of people showed up, told them, and then the next time I had a few hundred people show up. I was like, oh, not too bad. And I pitched my stuff, and then I started doing meetups, but then I was like, well, if it's just people networking, you don't get as much out of it. So then I started, maybe let me invite a speaker. So then I would have one speaker come and speak, and then I was like, well, let me see if I can produce something a little bit bigger. And then eventually, like, instead of having one speaker, then do some panels, and then from there I kind of build it up and then started doing conferences, right? And then it was like one day and then 2 days, and now I'm doing a whole week. So my point is, like, when you start, right, as an entrepreneur, anything you're doing, the product that you're starting today is not necessarily what it's going to be 5 years from now. So don't stress so much about it being perfect when you start. Just start, because as you get going, you get smarter, right? You learn things.
Exactly.
And you just
yes.
tweak, So from Harlem in like 2015 to the Venetian in 2021, so
that's pretty good. And like you say,
journey,
there's that old saying, every journey starts with the first step, however big or
small
it is.
Yeah, you got to start. So that's this journey. That's the journey, Ron. That's the journey.
I know that's the reason why I brought it up, because it's such a success story. And, I've heard so many stories like this, too. I even have a friend here in town who started a trade show years ago where he got I think he had 20 people showing up at the first time after a lot of marketing, a lot of advertising. And, he kept at it. And years later, this guy sold his trade show for, multi-millions. I mean, it's a testament to being focused and moving forward a little bit at a time. And you're doing exactly that.
Perseverance. Yeah.
You have to, and the part of the journey for me, like organizing these, it's because I get to meet a lot of people too, right? So I meet established, very successful people like the Anthony Scaramucci or like a Tim Draper, et cetera. And then I meet, up and coming founders, entrepreneurs who businesses haven't really scaled yet, but they have the drive, the ambition. So it's a mix of all that, and to me, it keeps me energized and focused. But also, it's my way of kind of helping the ecosystem, right?
So making your mark.
Yeah, because this is how I view like I said, even when I was just doing basic meetups, people would tell me afterwards, "Hey, Steve," like I wouldn't see someone for like 6 months. It's like, "Hey, Steve, at your event, I met this one person who did a deal together." Yeah. It was very beneficial for me what you did. So I'm like, well, that's another value add right there, right?
Absolutely.
Because if someone can come to your thing and they do a deal from it, that's terrific. That's the whole idea, right? So.
Absolutely.
Right.
And
right.
Ron and I have been to several different conferences where even that one person that we met has been spectacular in the future for us, and if we hadn't gone and met them, that one person at that one time, well, the future would have been different. And you remember that
Absolutely.
Forever, where you met that one person because you went to that one event, and now it's made a complete impact.
Absolutely.
They're important. Absolutely.
Yeah, so Steve, we deal with a lot of crowdfunding investors on the show, as well as real estate developers and people in that realm. Are these the people that should be attending the show? What kind of person attends the show that you're targeting right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of split up into different categories. One category of people who absolutely should attend the show and participate are people who own and operate buildings, real estate developers, real estate owners, as well as property managers, right? Because a lot of the conversations are around how innovation is affecting their business and how they can benefit from it, right? So if you own multifamily portfolio, you have residents. Technology is a big part of how you attract tenants in your building, how you run your building, how you provide services. Same thing if you own an office building, right? So these are topics that we're covering. Then there's a second segment, which is the tech companies themselves, right? The innovators, right? If you have software solutions or a specific product or service that you feel like someone who owns and operates an office building should absolutely have, you have to attend the event, right? You have to come exhibit so they can see your service or your product, right? And then there's a third category. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go on. I was just agreeing with you.
agreeing with you.
Yeah. So those are the two main categories. And then the third category would be people who service both sectors. So everything from accountants to attorneys to, any sort of third party that kind of supports the ecosystem that benefits from being there as well. Because it's an opportunity to meet potential clients and customers. And obviously, investors, right? Venture capitalists definitely should be there because we have a startup competition. So it's an opportunity to see early stage companies, which It's a great investment opportunity, but also helps you kind of get a sense of where the industry is headed. So that's kind of the segment of the people who should attend. In terms of their knowledge base themselves, it's just people who are really interested in the industry and in innovation around the industry, right? So that's kind of how
real estate agents and brokers as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Real estate agents and brokers as well can absolutely attend. Absolutely.
Interesting.
What about contractors and construction companies who are going to build the project on the real estate?
They should absolutely attend, because construction is one of those areas where there's a lot of innovation, robotics, artificial intelligence, different ways to improve how things are being built, track how things are being built, communicating on site, et cetera. Absolutely. Absolutely. Construction people should absolutely.
You have the whole gamut.
No question. Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you think about it from this perspective, right, it's the Festival of Real Estate Innovation. So anybody who's affiliated with our industry, whether you're designing, building, managing, leasing, selling real estate, it affects you. And innovation, everybody who's creating a solution to improve how we're doing our business should be there. And like I said, with COVID, it's forced everybody to rethink how they go about their day-to-day. It's forced everyone to rethink, what exactly does it mean to show up to an office every day to do your work? Do you have to come to the office 5 days a week, work 40, 50, 60 hours? Can you come 2 days a week? How does that affect what you're doing, right? And if you are building an office building, what impact does that have on climate change? How can you be more efficient in how you're building this, how you're designing? So there are all these different topics. And we're structuring it where when you come, you get your money's worth, because the topics will be relevant, the people will be the right sort of people, and you're going to leave with the tools and the knowledge that you need to move your business forward.
And especially the new knowledge that you didn't have when you started.
Correct.
Imagine what you can take with you after you're done. It is vital to what you're doing in the future.
Well, yeah,
it's critical.
Yeah. It's the new dilemma of the new century. Should you go to the office and argue with your boss, or should you stay at home and argue with your wife?
While your kids are running around the house.
Well, so it's a bit tricky, right? So assuming the kids are all back in school 5 days a week in September, right? Assuming that's possible, you're still going to have a universe of people who want to go to the office every single day because they like that commute time. They need to separate between like office hours, and they need that time. And then the other people are like, I don't want to be in the office every day. I can come once in a while. And then you have the in between. Like, can I go 2 days a week, or do I have the option maybe this week I'm on the office, next week I'm not? Right? I think employers should be smarter and just offer it as an option. I think most people still are going to want to go to the office, right?
Yeah.
But it's better if, as an employer, you give the option. You're like,
and you open yourself
option.
up to a larger pool of employees. If you have an operation in Vegas, but you find an outstanding employee to work for you who lives in New York, why shouldn't you have them work for you even though they live someplace else? And it's the whole new concept that the pandemic has created, that you can work for anybody, anywhere, wherever you live, wherever the business is, because you don't need to go to work anymore. You can work from home if that's what you like, or you can fly out. Who doesn't want to come to Vegas to fly out just so you can work for a day a week? It's just the potential is exponential.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I don't disagree. I think, for example, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, right? His view was that in their business, they need people in the office because it's apprenticeship, right? So they need to teach you certain things, and they don't feel comfortable doing it remotely, right? Does it mean everybody at Goldman agrees with that? Probably not. There are probably some people who feel like, well, Most of us probably don't want to be here every single day, but I get his point. But like you mentioned, the ability to hire people wherever they are increases your talent pool significantly.
And your production. You have a better employees wherever they are, increases production, which makes your company more viable and more successful because you've expanded your pool of employees. It's a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. And for those companies, they'll need something like Any Size Deals Wake because they can bring all their employees for a lovely week in Vegas. They can network, hang out, but also learn about different aspects of the business, right? So it kind of helps accomplish that as well, in a fun setting, right?
Exactly. Well, that's Vegas.
No place better than Vegas.
Hey, Steve, before we close this podcast out, I have a couple more questions for you, just a few more.
Absolutely.
One is these days in COVID, post-COVID, et cetera, how easy is it or hard to get a venue such as the Venetian? I mean, do you call them up and before you start talking, they say yes, or do you have to? Is there a lot of negotiation involved, or what?
I booked it way before COVID, so it was scheduled for 2020 of last year. I think I booked it maybe in November of the previous year.
Wow.
I booked it almost a year ahead of when I needed the space, right? And that was after me exploring different things, different venues for 3 months. So I cannot tell you how it is right now because I've had the venue. I've booked it a while back. I booked it a year before COVID even occurred.
That's great timing. Great timing on your part. That's pretty impressive.
So right now
Why did you choose the Venetian? Why did you choose the Venetian of all the places in Vegas you could have been?
Well, there's just the general business reason I looked at the timing, right? Because a lot of it also has to do with when you want the space, what else is happening, and what kind of deal the casino hotel will offer you, and also the quality. One, I wanted to make sure I'm at a venue that's quality and that I can be very proud of, because I don't want people to come to my show and I'm not, I need them to come and be excited. This is an awesome venue, awesome content. Steve did an amazing job. I want to come back next year. So one, the venue has to be top notch. So the Venetian is definitely top notch. Two, timing, I had to make sure it works. And three, just comfort working with the staff, the contact people at the casino. They were very responsive. Most of them were responsive, but I just felt like they put in more. And then the owner, he recently passed away. Sheldon Adelson, the owner of the Venetian. Venetian. Yes. Yes, I read about his story many years ago when I started doing events, and I read that he started this show called Comdex. It was a big computer show, and at its height, they used to have 100,000 attendees in Vegas, right?
Oh,
and this
yeah,
was before
Comdex
he built,
is big.
Yeah, this was before he built the Venetian, and he built the Venetian as a result of this. But before he even built it, right? He started a trade show on computers and knew nothing about computers. He knew absolutely, he never even used a computer in his life, but he had gone to a trade show for another industry and realized the economics of it, and he bought this publisher. And he's like, well, I have this publisher, this magazine. How about I put my own trade show? And computers are trending. Although he knew nothing about computers, he just identified a trend and put together the trade show and build this massive thing, and then he sold it for $1 billion. So what I found so interesting is that he built a trade show in an industry that he knew nothing about. And I remember I saw one of his interviews once, and they asked him about it, and he said, well, when it comes to business, you personally don't need to necessarily understand every single detail about that specific business. What you need to understand is how to make money in that business, right? So he didn't understand computers, but he knew that a lot of people love computers, and if they had a show where they can see the products, buy and sell it, he can make a lot of money. So that logic, I was just so fascinated by it. So I was like, well, another reason for me to actually do it there, because I just think the guy who built this had like such a fascinating concept and understanding of business. So that was another reason.
Yeah, and that's a nice homage to him.
Sure, and Uber doesn't own any cars, and Airbnb doesn't own any investment properties. It's the same type of thing. It's really
that's right.
It's amazing.
You just have to be able to see the future. You have to be able to innovate and see something and see the potential and jump on it before anybody else does. And there's very few people that are that visionary, like you, Steve.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Steve, the Venetian does all your work for you as far as putting up the tables and the curtains and setting up the stages and all that other stuff. Is that right?
Well, it kind of depends on how you negotiate and work things out with them. But yeah, for the most part.
Okay. So if somebody were to want to exhibit at this show, perhaps, what are their responsibilities? Just to bring a banner or material, or what do they have to bring themselves? And how do they do it? How do they get a hold of you to do this?
Well, it really depends on like what kind of setup they want. If you just want like a standard booth at the table, then they'll just bring like their banner and like whatever other stuff. But if they want something a little bit more produced, it's something that we have to talk about to negotiate because the other things that come into play. But a basic standard one, it's just banner, computer, and other stuff. But if they want something a little bit more elaborate, there are other fees that will go into that, plus electricity and all like other costs.
Electricity, et cetera. That's good. Okay, all right. And then the last question I had for you, as far as these trade shows are concerned, yours in particular, is a lot of it tends to be a success or a failure based on, one, the attendance, and two, the speakers. So how are you getting speakers to this event, and how are you getting attendance to this as well? What kind of marketing are you doing?
So for the speakers, a lot of it has to do from just the fact that I've been doing conferences for a while. So I already have a lot of speakers within the pipeline that I know, right? So getting those, it's pretty straightforward. Now, the additional speakers that have never spoken at my events and specific keynotes that I'm reaching out to putting together to make sure I have an exciting show. In terms of attendees, et cetera, that's always the trickiest part with these shows. So a lot of it has to do with your marketing on social and then partnerships that you're able to build with a variety of different people that have their own networks, so you can kind of leverage all that. So that's the whole idea. Now, given the fact that we're in a COVID world, it's very hard to predict what your final tally would be, like projections, but it's kind of hard to project or predict what the number would be. But I'm very excited because there is a lot of energy and there's a lot of excitement. People are eager to get back out there. So I'm sure it's going to be an amazing turnout, and
no question.
I'm very excited to put on the show in Vegas,
And by September, too, it'll be different.
It'll be different. That's my hope. That September will be a different world.
Yeah, and Vicky, did you know that there's a section there in his trade show regarding opportunity zones? I think you have some opportunity zone speakers, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yes,
that's really great.
Yes, we do.
Really, really great. So listen, I'm sure there's a lot of people here that need to go to this show. I think it's going to be incredible, and the topic obviously is something that we all love. How do people get a hold of you, Steve? Or what's the best way to do this? Phone number or website, or if they want to buy tickets, or how do you do this?
They can just go to the website, so they can go to anysizedeals.com, or the show it's called Any Size Deals Week. So also anysizedealsweek.com, and all the information is there. And they can contact me through the site as well. They can find I'm also on LinkedIn, so it's a very easy way for them to find me. And any questions that they have about the show, if they want to exhibit, if they want to present, we have a startup competition. We also have the ASD Awards, which is an award ceremony recognizing the most innovative companies, people, and projects in the real estate space. So, which is also something very exciting. They can apply for that. So it's really about creating an amazing week in Vegas. Oh, the dates. I forgot to give the dates. It's September 7th through the 10th.
That's important.
2021 at the Venetian in Las Vegas. So it's exciting. There's a lot of energy, a lot of momentum. So we're really excited have all these people come together.
And the best part about the show, for us at least, it's in Las Vegas. We can just walk to it if we need to.
And the Venetian is one of the most beautiful
it really is.
locations on the Strip. When the Venetian first opened, it had a Guggenheim museum in it. And the first time I went into that venue, oh my God, I was just blown away because of all of the things I could see, and everything around me was so elegant and so beautiful. And then you have the gondolas, and you have the opera singers, and you have, oh my God, it's just, I don't even know how to describe it except it's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, when Vicky is speechless, then you got something that's pretty special, I think. So
that's a true fact.
That's true, right? Yeah. So Vicky, should we close this out? Do you have any last questions for Steve at all, or?
How many people you think are going to come, Steve?
It's hard to predict. That's what I said. It's very hard.
How many people do you want to come?
As many as possible.
Perfect answer.
Okay, then how many rooms do you have blocked?
Hopefully enough.
Yes.
Hopefully enough.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fabulous event, Steve, and Ron and I look forward to it.
Yeah, I can't wait. That sounds great. So Steve, thanks again for being a guest on today's podcast. I'm really happy you took some time out to be with us. And Vicky, thanks for co-hosting. Thanks for co-hosting the podcast. Folks, you're listening to the Mappable USA podcast at mappableusa.com. If you go to that website, you scroll down, you'll see all our syndication sources. There are a lot of them. Select the one you like the best, subscribe, and you'll never miss another one of our episodes. If you like what you heard today, send an email to info@mappableusa.com or leave a message on whatever page you're listening to this on right now. And if you want to be a guest on the show like Steve was today, there's a guest tab there. Just click on that guest tab, scroll down, fill out the form, and we'll see what we do about getting you on the show. So thanks, everyone, for listening. Thanks for your support. We'll be at you next time with another Mappable USA podcast. Have a great week, everyone.